I'm Marissa Morgan. Welcome to Today's Health. We're here talking about the revolutionary non-prescription medication alternatives that are disrupting the multi-trillion-dollar GLP-1 weight loss and pain markets worldwide. Today, I'm here with Dr. Scott Martin and Maria Stella. Dr. Scott Martin, you are a board-certified non-narcotic pain management specialist. And Maria, you have 32 years of experience in pharmaceutical-grade formulations, and you really are the subject matter expert today. So let's start out talking about this GLP-1 toolkit, this non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit. How did we get here?
First, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It started with my wife, Dr. Maria Martin, writing her book, The Type 0 Diabetic. She has worked for a little over 20 years to write this book. In residency, she already wanted to write a book, but she didn't feel like she had the experience consistent with the book she wanted to write. And we started to see this almost epidemic of weight gain. And then we saw this crazy epidemic of weight loss. And because weight loss and weight gain fluctuates, just kind of like most people's moods these days, she thought, you know what, I think this is the time. I think I really want to disrupt this moment and kind of take all of this hype, and as my wife would say, dispel the myths and get back to the science.
I think this would be a good time to talk to Dr. Marian Martin, AKA Dr. Hormone Hacker, a board-certified endocrinologist and specialist in weight loss. While we were hoping to have her live here in the studio to talk, she is doing amazing things and she is traveling around the country on a book tour. Now, Dr. Marianne, your best-selling book is called The Type 0 Diabetic. Who is this book for and who should be reading this book?
Thank you so much. I want to start with what the title actually means. As you and the audience may know, we have type 1 diabetes, which is generally diagnosed at a younger age. This is a defect where the person is not able to make their own insulin. And then we have type 2 diabetes, much more common and very related to lifestyle. And we even have conversations about Alzheimer's being a form of type 3 diabetes. So my idea behind this book is how can we improve, prevent, and reverse diabetes so that everyone learns how to become a type 0 diabetic.
I think what's wonderful about this book and the work you're doing is that you're really disrupting the way that people look at diabetes. You're helping patients understand that they can take a more proactive approach to taking care of themselves. And is it true that maybe they don't need to rely on these GLP-1 injections that are being advertised like crazy? Is this true?
It is absolutely true. If we catch this early and we take the right actions, but most importantly, you have the proper guidance, because as you know, the side effects from the GLP-1 injections are typically coming from the medications honestly being prescribed by people who don't have the knowledge to guide on how much protein are you supposed to have while you're taking this medication. How much strength training is actually required so that you don't have muscle loss? What do you do when you have hair loss? Is it related to this? And many women actually don't know that when they're on these injectables, and if they're in a childbirth age, they cannot be on this medication if they're pregnant. And many of these women don't even know that.
I think you just touched on something that is a big part of the problem that we're seeing today. And that is GLP-1 injections were originally formulated for people with diabetes, right? And now we're seeing the masses running to get these injections for losing weight. How big of a problem is this becoming? And as far as side effects go, it sounds like there's a lot.
This is a huge issue because the first 30 days on a GLP-1 medication is where we often see the most side effects. And if you don't have very good partnership with your healthcare provider on what to do, how to troubleshoot, how to adjust the medication, you are going to run into the majority of the issues during this time. But what I also find lacking is that the journey on GLP-1 drugs actually starts before your first dose. If you don't already have a game plan on what you need to do to support the GLP-1 with a sustainable nutrition plan and exercise regimen, how will you have long-term success when you're ready to start tapering off the medication? Because these medications are truly miraculous at helping to reduce your appetite and turn off that noise of the cravings that you used to have. They work beautifully, almost too well in some cases. But the problem is, as soon as you come off these medications or even start tapering down on the dose, if you don't already have well established habits and routines, in 1 year, 70% of people gain all the weight back. And the problem is, while they're losing the weight, they're not just losing fat, they're also losing muscle. But when they regain the weight back, they're not regaining any muscle. They're only regaining fat.
Wow. Well, for someone who's listening right now, maybe they considered taking the GLP-1 injectables, or they've been struggling with their weight and they're looking for help. It actually sounds like running to take a diabetic medicine, like a true GLP-1 injectable, could really be opening up a Pandora's box of problems now and into the future.
Absolutely. Yes.
One last question I have for you is, what do you have to say to the people out there right now that are already taking a GLP-1, an injectable, but they don't have diabetes and they are doing it to simply lose weight? What do you want to tell those people? Is there a better option?
Absolutely. I think there's two possible paths that they could consider. If they're concerned about the very well-known side effects of injectable GLP-1s, they can really start finding out more about the other forms that are safer for GLP-1. And when they're ready to make that transition, they can do that. It's a wonderful way also to taper off from an injection to something else without having such a dramatic change. You know, one day I'm on the injection and the next day I'm completely on my own. So it's a more gentle transition that sets you up for long-term success.
What great advice you've shared with us. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
You know, I have to say my wife is singularly brilliant. It's the greatest joy in my life to be her spouse. As she was writing this book, and this started probably 2 years ago, she was laying out the foundation for metabolic health, weight loss, diabetes prevention. I asked Marianne, do we need to offer patients something more than what maybe big pharma can give them, or what, you know, a quick telemedicine appointment might offer? Can we do something non-prescription, over the counter, that could really change somebody's life? And can your book be the foundation and the science and the research, but can we have a solution for that action step? And that's when we started the process of, all right, let's dream a little bit. What would the perfect solution be if we weren't giving somebody a prescription GLP-1? And my wife looks at me, and we're walking our two lovely dogs, and she says, well, wait a minute. She said, weight loss isn't the only problem. Weight loss is just one problem, because there are people that want to lose weight, but then there are people that want to maintain their weight. They've already lost what they want to lose, but now they got to maintain their weight. And then what about the people who are coming off GLP-1s? Now, what do? Maybe they had side effects. Maybe they reached their weight loss goal. What are they going to do next? It's really bigger than just weight loss. And so I've been friends with Maria for almost 10 years. And 10 years ago, I was on a journey, and I spent $750,000 of my own money to try to find a solution for narcotics, because they were killing 50, 75,000 people a year. And Maria helped me formulate that product back in the day.
Maria, how did you get on this non-prescription GLP-1 journey with Scott and Marianne?
I had a tragedy in my life, and I skyrocketed to 200 pounds. In 1987, I lost my 3-year-old son to a drunk driver. And I had 2 other children, and I was very mad at God. And I went on a tear for 3 years of how it could just all be over. How can I get out of here? How can I end this life? And I believe that truly by the grace of God, I was introduced to an amino acid formula. And I'm not kidding. This wasn't days. It was 30 minutes. And my brain, every time I would think about Joshua, I couldn't breathe.
And Joshua was your son that you lost?
Yes, Joshua David. And, you know, hindsight is an amazing thing. Had all that not happened, I wouldn't have had that amino acid drink. I wouldn't have discovered what nutrients can do. And I just can't even explain the passion of, oh my God, nobody ever has to be depressed again. And then it was like, well, nobody ever needs to be fat again. I just kept discovering this stuff, and I truly believe it's straight from God that it's like I learn in pieces at the right timing. So first I learned about the amino acid in the brain, then I learned about the weight loss, then I learned about progesterone, and all those things. By the time I meet Scott, it's like, what do I do with all these gifts?
In the process of her getting over her grief, and in the process of her building her considerable repertoire as a formulator, she had this wonderful foundation, and I had this wonderful goal. And that collided with my wife's action. She's writing this book, I have these goals, she has this experience, and this all came together kind of in this wonderful, wonderful paradigm where we had the ability to take our collective strengths and actually act on them. And that's a very rare thing.
It is
a lot of people have ideas. Very few people do anything with those ideas. And what has come of all of this is the non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit.
This is so personal to me because when we started talking about the epidemic of the drug and where it can take people, like, no, you don't want to let that happen, but I know what it's like to be a desperate, obese person. And you want to make excuses. You have these triggers in your brain. And when we use the word disrupt, those products disrupt the cycle, which is hindering your ability to lose weight. So it's not about a shot. This is about a lifestyle that gives you the crutch to not give in to all these cravings. Like, they happen and you can't control it. And if you can take control of your health and your weight like I did with the help of nutrients, it's a journey you don't want to go back. A lot of the side effects of the prescription drugs that Dr. Mark can speak to. One of the ones that made me so sad is that they can't go to the bathroom. Like, they can't poop. That's not good. Wow. So now all of a sudden I was watching all these black box warnings while we're in the middle of this project, going, okay, dear God, this We are meant to do this, and now we've got to educate, which Marianne's book does so well, lets you get afraid of that journey. It's not good. And if you can stop it now, I mean, who would say no?
The journey has to start somewhere, right? And so I think as a foundational piece, again, Marianne's book is so comprehensive as a start for that journey. But most people who are trying to lose weight, they need something good to happen in their lives. They need some domino to fall. They need proof that something's going to work. And the great thing about prescription GLP-1s is you're going to lose weight, right? But just like at the very end of the commercial, when they rush through all the little side effect profiles and it's like this long, right? You're so excited about losing the weight that you ignore that little voice in your head that says, well, maybe when they mention death at the end of that disclaimer, that isn't the best thing, right? But people get so desperate to start a journey, they're not really looking at all the potential roadblocks in that course. So we started with the science. And the science demonstrates that the pharmaceutical grade ingredients in our GLP-1 toolkit, non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit, showed substantial weight reduction in peer-reviewed clinical studies. I've been in consulting for quite a long time. I've consulted for big pharma, I've consulted for big device, I've consulted for big CBD, I've consulted for big biotech, and now big stem cells. And in the process of formulating, if you want the best result, you have to start with the best recipe, which means the best ingredients. We're here in Las Vegas. And here in Las Vegas, if you want a 5-star restaurant, you better have 5-star ingredients. Well, that's why I called Maria Stella. She has a dogged determination when it comes to only standing behind a brand that's going to have premium ingredients, because only in that will you get the premium solution and the premium result. We got together and we started the process with my lovely Dr. Hormone Hacker of reverse engineering something that usually people have to spend a whole lot of money for, have a ton of side effects using, right? And isn't on most people's insurance plan. And so we said, okay, how do we go about a better solution for weight management, weight loss, while preserving skeletal muscle health, because so many people on GLP-1s get side effects like sarcopenia, painful side effects, by the way. And how do we bring this to market exclusively for those discerning customers that don't want a 15-minute phone call in a potentially side effect-ridden product? And that's where we started.
Well, let's dive into what exactly this non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit is and how somebody can benefit from using it. Maria, you formulated this. What exactly is it?
The kit is critical because it's no one component. I've got to address your appetite. I've got to make sure your fat is burning. I've got to make sure that you've got an ingredient that has been studied to help you drop pounds. So we're coming at this every which way.
It sounds like what you've created, this toolkit, this really trifecta, right, of these 3 different products work together, like you said, from different angles, almost like the fat loss army, to address different things that are happening in our body in maybe a more holistic way to help our body to not have the appetite more naturally, not have the cravings more naturally, and then to be naturally burning fat, right? Am I understanding this right?
It's so well stated. 30 to 60% of patients on prescription GLP-1s stop them within the first year because of the gastrointestinal side effects. those gastrointestinal side effects are because food's just literally sitting like a shoe banging around a dryer in your stomach, right? And it's just clunking around in there. And so is it going to make you vomit or have diarrhea or all these untoward things? You betcha. And usually not when you really want it to happen, right? So we decided to come at this from a different angle. We selected, with Maria's extensive help and her storied career, the best ingredients to create the most holistic and comprehensive solution. So whether it's I want to lose weight, whether it's I want to maintain my weight, whether it's I've already lost my weight and how do I not gain the weight back without vomiting, without feeling terrible or bloated or disgusting or full, so that in a healthy way, right, you live cleaner, pure, and share with your friends a much more energetic and a much more centered lifestyle.
This isn't about being fat. It's about how do I get to be like all those healthy people, because time is running out. And this is the simple, proven way to turn all those habits around, because by the time it's all said and done, I would have never thought when I was 200 pounds that I was ever going to go into the gym. People think I work out all the time. I only started working out about a year ago because I'm getting ready to be 70 years old. And I'm thinking that clock is ticking.
Yeah, but look at how fabulous you look at 70.
But what's so great is that I started the journey. Okay, this is over. I'm not going to live like this anymore. But I'm telling you, I know as well as anybody listening to this, there are little voices in your brain. There's a couple of desserts my husband eats, something ice cream stuff. It doesn't call my name. You bring carrot cake in that house, it doesn't just call my name. It's screaming to me while I'm already in bed. So let's help that stuff that you have to control.
The triggers is really what it is, and I can relate to what you're sharing. My father suffers from diabetes, and he tries so hard every day to eat right. He tries to make the good decisions. But does my mother catch him in the kitchen almost every night around midnight sneaking cookies? She does, and it is so hard for him because it is. It's like the sugar devil on your shoulder saying, you need that cookie, you need that cake. Oh, it's fine, just a little bit, right? But that really, especially for someone with diabetes, right, it really does a lot of damage, right?
And sugar is probably the most powerful drug on the planet.
Bar none. When I married Marianne, I grew up in St. Louis. And I tell people, look, in Missouri, we used to butter our butter. And very literally, within 6 months of being married, I sat down to have a snack. Now, a snack for a country city boy from Missouri is you take out your white Wonder Bread, right?
Sugar,
and that's
mind
right.
you,
Get out your Peter Pan peanut butter, right? And I get out my tub of country crock butter.
You did not with the country crock.
Oh, yeah. And so I'm sitting there and I'm making my sandwiches, right? And I've got a huge glass of milk here. And so, I would put peanut butter on one half of the slice of bread and butter on the other and fold them in half. And I literally ate peanut butter and butter sandwiches. And so I'm making these sandwiches, and I've got 2 or 3. I'm midway through like the second sandwich, and my wife walks in the door and she looks me dead in the eyes and she says, I'm not going to be married to a diabetic.
Wow.
Now, diabetes doesn't run in my family, but I can tell you what, this November I'll be married for 25 years to the wonderful Dr. Marianne, and she puts up with my excess of personality, but she also puts up with my excess of appetite. Now, I may be lean, but I've been on this non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit for 6 months.
You look great.
Well,
you both do. I just
you
want
have
to
to
say that.
lean into health. And so
You have to want it.
Yeah, you may have that little devil on your shoulder that says,
carrot cake.
carrot cake. Mine still says peanut butter and butter sandwiches. And how crazy that is, I don't know, but that's how I grew up. My grandfather, peanut butter and butter sandwiches, God rest his soul, right? And so leaning into health starts a journey. And it's not a weight loss or weight management or weight control journey. It's a habit-driven journey.
And when you take control of your weight and your health, you don't have to go to a convent and eat soup. You just have to love being healthy enough that you make good choices.
Well, and if you're going to make that choice, make sure you support that choice with the right products.
Right.
I would love for you to walk me through each of the components of the non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit, how we incorporate them in our day. First is the GLP-1 ketosis.
Here's how I use it, and here's how I teach the weight loss centers to teach the patient. That is 1 in the morning on an empty stomach to rev up my metabolism. Not to the point where I'm going with palpitations. It's this very mild way to get all the parts of the body that are involved in burning fat to wake up, but empty stomach.
Most people start their day with things that make them hungry, right? That stimulates appetite, doesn't increase your metabolism, doesn't start the process of fat burning. If you can start the process in the morning where you're building your metabolism and you're starting the process of burning fat, that's how we want to start our morning.
I think it makes sense. If you're burning fat, you're getting your energy from burning the fat, right? Not the Pop-Tart that you had for breakfast, the sugar, right? The glucose.
In fact, the sugar is actually an antagonist. This is not difficult. It is an easy. In fact, I named it fasting faster, because if I can keep you from being hungry, which they do it, then you're going to get to that goal.
Let's talk about hunger for a second. So the second component in the non-prescription GLP toolkit.
And this is GLP-1 cravings. When are we going to take this, and what is this going to do for our body?
Well, it's interesting that you talked about sugar and you're talking about cravings. The problem with most foods, if I'm eating one Oreo cookie, that sugar is a dopamine kick. And I have that one cookie and maybe I'm watching a movie and I get a little bit of dopamine. Well, I definitely want another cookie. And then maybe I want another cookie. And then maybe by the time I'm done watching the movie, I'm done with a whole sleeve of Oreos, right? Especially if they're refrigerated, right? Oh, who doesn't love refrigerated Oreos?
Never had it, but now
It's
the dopamine.
the fat meat
I'm
in
still
there.
the one opening it and then trying to scoop the middle.
Yes, it's the hugely fat person inside me. I love everything. So the way we created this second important piece in the GLP-1, non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit, some of the ingredients stabilize blood sugars. Chromium perchlorate is one of the better products to stabilize blood sugars. It's been used in diabetics for years to balance the really high and really low swings in blood sugar. Now, at the same time that we want to balance blood sugar, we want to have all the essential amino acids necessary for not just glycemic health, but for muscle health. This is where we get into some of the protective elements in this non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit. So as you're revving up your metabolism, as you're stabilizing those fluctuations in blood sugar, we also have the fuel that we need to be active without crashing our blood sugar.
And that is important to talk about, because there is a thing when you first get started on this journey where when you don't give your brain the sugar that it just told you to go get, it gets angry. So you have to shut it up. So it's a journey. You've got to start. You've got to want it. And what I say to many, give me 10 days. Call me, text me, do whatever you have to do. But that's what I've been teaching the weight loss centers, because many of these successful programs, historically, you're accountable. You are accountable for, like, let's go in and weigh. Were you a good girl this week? Let yourself be accountable to you. If you want that bad enough, then nothing will get in your way. And I wanted it. I wanted to not be in a wheelchair at 70 I just wanted quality of life. And I really believe that if we can help this journey, that's what you get.
Well, unfortunately, as much as you may want it, every now and then you need an extra voice, right? Somebody
help,
else
a little help.
to tell you to shut off that I'm really, really hungry. And
Is that our third product? It's
That
called
is our
the
third
GLP-1 Clinical Grade Hunger Alleviator.
so the body has certain hormones. Leave it to Dr. Hormone Hacker to figure out this formulation with the lovely Maria. And those hormones tell us we're hungry, right? And you see influencers all the time say that weight loss isn't at the end of a barbell, it's at the end of a fork, right? Well, not everyone has, favorable voices inside their body, favorable hormone levels that actually tell you you're not hungry. Well, part of this fabulous non-prescription GLP-1 hunger component is it's yet another voice, right? Drowning out those, I think I want a second sleeve of Oreos, right? To help encourage that weight loss goal, that weight maintenance goal, that lifestyle preservation goal. And again, critical to the formulation was having the single best ingredients. And this was an exhaustive journey and an expensive one to get the single best ingredients.
You know why? Believe it or not, there are people in this industry that don't tell the truth.
Shocker.
And it has been my purpose. How dare you lie to me? I'm going to get to the bottom of that. I don't want an ingredient that doesn't do anything or isn't backed by science. You can't just say, take this pill because I said so. It's got to be real. That's my legacy, is I will never make a product that doesn't match the science.
The one thing that we're seeing today is literally droves of people running to telemedicine appointments, running to their doctor, going online to find access to this GLP-1 injection. But now the more people that are taking it, whether they have diabetes or they don't, we're now seeing so many side effects, and some are very serious. So can we just dip our toe into some of the side effects that come along with a GLP-1 injection, a prescription GLP-1
Let's do that.
injection?
And I'm not trying to be overly crass, but, the thought process has been, I can go to McDonald's, and if I take a prescription GLP-1, I'm not going to gain the weight. I just got done playing pickleball with the girls, and it's wine o'clock, right? And, I can have that 2, 3, 4 glasses of wine a day, every single day, and as long as I take that shot, I'm going to lose weight. Well, what starts to happen to these people, unfortunately, is when they go to get up to get that second glass of wine, they can't get up, right? 40% of the weight loss with a prescription GLP-1 can be muscle loss.
40%.
40%. Now,
Wow.
we're losing muscle that we call core muscle. That's the muscle in our quadriceps that helps us stand up from a seated position. Muscles in our shoulders that help us raise our arms. The supporting muscles in our back that just keeps us upright. So imagine if you're working at Amazon and having to stand all day, and you've lost all this wonderful weight with a prescription GLP-1, but you also lost a bunch of muscle. Maybe you can't stand for that 8 or 9 hour shift, right? Maybe you're a little bit older and you want to play with your grandchildren and you've developed profound sarcopenia, muscle loss, right? Maybe you can't stand up to go play with them. Or maybe you're just simply, 35-year-old mother of twins, right? And you've got to lift those exceedingly heavy car seats with a squirming baby in it, right? And you go to lift that car seat up out of the stroller and you can't lift it anymore, right? When we're on a prescription GLP-1, our side effects can include muscle loss. They can include GI issues, vomiting, diarrhea, flatulence, decrease transit time in the gut. But how many pain medications do the exact same thing?
Yes.
More and more and more patients that are very overweight are suffering from pain. And I know we're talking about a non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit, but part of the solution that we wanted to bring to these customers was a corollary, something that was a constant in their life. And unfortunately, for about 60 million Americans, that constant in their life is Arthur, that arthritis that's become so familiar to them, they call it Arthur, right, and not arthritis. Pain is a terrible, chronic complication of chronic prescription GLP-1 use, because some sarcopenia can be painful, but most patients that are in the process of losing weight, that are in the process of trying to get more active, because their bodies hurt, they physically hurt, they have to figure out how to control that pain. Because pain, just like being overweight, can horribly disrupt your quality of life. Now, I have a lot of experience in this. I'm an interventional pain doctor. I have been for 25 years. I started my career with the sickest of the sick. I was one of the few fellows at the University of Michigan to rotate through the VA hospital in the palliative care clinic. That palliative care clinic was for patients that were dying of cancer. I did all 12 months of my fellowship in the palliative care clinic, and it was something that I wanted to do because I had near and dear family members that had died of cancer, an extremely painful cancer. My father's a head and neck cancer surgeon. He's widely regarded as some of the best hands in head and neck cancer surgery in the Midwest. When I went into pain medicine to honor my father, I wanted to make the amelioration of pain a component, and a huge component, of my practice. Now, I'll say this. For 10 years, I dealt with people with refractory pain. Those were people dying of cancer, people that had had horrible traumatic accidents, and people that were addicted to narcotics. A third of my practice was cancer. A third of my practice was end-stage pain from trauma. A third of my practice was people who were on exceptional doses of narcotics at the height of the narcotic epidemic. And we're not talking like a Vicodin or two. We're talking about people who were on hundreds, if not thousands, of milligrams of morphine equivalent. Tremendous doses of narcotics. I left the state of California in 2014, and I moved to Las Vegas, where we are today, in 2015. And I started the first non-narcotic pain practice in the state of Nevada. Now, when you're in non-narcotic medicine, you don't have a whole lot of tools. You basically have Tylenol and lidocaine patches and muscle relaxants. There isn't anything else. And this is when I first met Maria. The CBD market was just starting to get kind of exciting. And so very early on, these products as supplements or even over-the-counter solutions were exceptionally expensive. And so I called Maria and I said, look, I've spent an exhaustive amount of money in research. I want to create something that will revolutionize over-the-counter pain control. And she's like, I'm your huckleberry. She was thoroughly excited. She's like, let's do this, right? Well, after a year and a half of formulating and about $750,000 of my own money, we created an over-the-counter non-narcotic alternative. Now, what we're looking at here actually supersedes what I created back in 2016. In 2016, we brought to market a non-narcotic alternative. And in my clinic in Las Vegas, I took 300 patients off high-dose narcotics, cold turkey with no withdrawal.
Wow.
Now, a lot of people paid attention, and unfortunately, I got the attention of Big Pharma. And I tell this because it's a true story. I wrote a book about it. On a Tuesday at about 7 o'clock in the morning, I got a call. And it was the vice president of one of the biggest pharma companies in the world. And I thought, I'm rich. I thought, I'm retired. They're going to buy my product. This is amazing, right? I was so excited. And he says, Dr. Martin, this is where you're standing in your house. And I thought, that's unsettling. And then he told me where my wife was on the highway. And then he told me where my kids were in school, in what classroom they were in, and who their teacher was. And then he told me how much money I had in the bank. And then he told me my tax returns for the previous 2 years. And then he said, you have 30 days to dispose of 100% of the product you created, all of your patents, all of your trademarks, and all of your marketing. You're going to get a knock on the door in 2 minutes. And that knock on the door is going to be a lawsuit. And you simply don't have enough money to defend yourself from this suit. And the whole litigation was predicated on the fact that the product worked too well, and it was all over a trademark violation. And so it's been nearly 10 years since that happened.
I was the one making the product, and it had to get gone now.
Yep.
You were able to help 300 people overcome an opioid addiction, essentially?
Oh, yeah.
With the product you had created then?
Yes.
Wow.
And the brilliance is
A non-narcotic product.
you can't unknow what you know. So with that experience, knowing what the trigger was, when we went back to the drawing board, everything he had learned now made it better. And I want to say one thing about pain. If you're on that journey and you're trying to fight behavior inside of you that you have had for years, and something hurts, it's an excuse to go have the carrot cake. Because I don't feel good. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do this.
I don't have energy. I'm tired. My foot hurts from the elliptical at the gym.
Yes. The essence is it works. It won't let you down.
Human nature is something that's hard to get over, right? And because so much of our society wants it right now.
Oh, yeah.
And we have an Amazon society, right? And so people will say to me, I know you're on this non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit, but can't I just buy that on Amazon? Well, first and foremost, most of what you're going to buy on Amazon probably doesn't have the ingredients in it.
Doesn't match the label. I have tested some of the products.
We're not talking about a supplement. We're talking about a non-prescription GLP-1 pharmaceutical grade toolkit, a pharmaceutical grade non-narcotic relief made in a CGMP certified facility here in the United States, right? Mm-hmm. The level of certification you have to have just to make a product in a CGMP certified facility in the United States is tremendous. Your walking in the door cost is tremendous because you're guaranteeing that that facility has passed very, very high FDA standards for cleanliness, sterility, premium ingredient manufacturing, and they're using all of the safe harbor and GRAS certifications to make products that are safe for human consumption. If this product is coming in from Asia, or it's coming in from the Philippines or Vietnam or God knows where, do we have any idea if it's safe for human consumption? We don't. We know it's cheap. Mm-hmm. We know you can get it by tomorrow afternoon.
But what are you getting?
Exactly.
That's the big question mark. So let's talk about the results of both of the products you offer.
The results are consistent with the quality of the manufacturing. Mm-hmm. The quality of the manufacturing reflects Maria's dedication to her craft for over 30 years. The quality of the products and the quality of the solution reflects really my dedication in 25 years of medicine to take care of people that really nobody else wants to take care of because pain patients are very hard to care for. And my wife's dedication to diabetes, because those people who are in that pre-diabetic stage, that early diabetes stage, these are disease processes that are moribund. People with diabetes, I mean, they get very, very sick, and many of them unfortunately pass away from complications of diabetes. So when we're talking about a solution, we're not talking about, I'm gonna fit into my wedding dress, or I'm gonna get that revenge dress for my high school reunion, or I'm gonna fit back into those jeans I wore when I was in college, right? That's not the solution we're talking about. We're talking about the solution that gives you a quality of life when you're 70, 80, 90 years old. When you finally worked for 65, 67 and a half years and you retire, do you retire to go on and live a beautiful, holistic, wonderful life in traveling Europe? Or have you completed your entire work life and now there's no shot that you could walk up the Spanish Steps in Italy? And it's been a little picture on your dream board for 25 years. And now your health precludes you from being able to walk up the steps that you've dreamed about walking for Lord knows how long.
Can we just address this right now? Because people may be watching this thinking, well, what if patients come to my clinic and they don't believe it? They think it's a gimmick. They say, oh, I've tried 20 different things to lose weight. Nothing worked for me. Why would this work? What would you want them to know?
Well, listen, my one answer is I don't care if you've tried everything. Give me a chance. I won't lie to you. I won't let you down. Just use it the way you're supposed to, and it's going to work. Like, nobody can guarantee something they didn't make.
I remember a story, because I'm a big car guy, and I remember reading a story about Carroll Shelby. And if anybody's watched the movie Ford vs. Ferrari, it's just a fabulous movie.
Great movie.
And I remember reading a story about Mr. Shelby. And I actually had a Shelby signed Mustang at one point in time. Should have never sold it. But he said something that I loved. He said, my name's on the car because I built the car. And I only drive something that I've built.
Wow.
I think that speaks to the heart of what we're talking about here, right? When I created my product in 2016, I put my entire reputation on the line. And I put my reputation up against Big Pharma, right? Now, I lost that journey because I didn't have $1 billion to fight them, right? But you learn in the process, right? That the real person that lost wasn't me. And it wasn't that Big Pharma won. It was the 301st person that would have come to my office addicted to narcotics, right? That was the person that would have lost. It was
every
the 300
patient thereafter,
correct.
too.
It was the 302nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th that may not have been addicted to narcotics, but just was suffering in pain, and they can't go fly a plane if they're using narcotics, because you can't fly a plane on drugs, right? That's driving for UPS and can't drive on drugs. That's a police officer or a fireman or a teacher or just anyone who's driving their kids to school and doesn't want to feel impaired, right? Because those are the people that I was seeing on a regular basis. Now, what I did in that study was fabulous, but all the other people that I was helping outside that study who were just negotiating their life, right? And whether that's somebody who's trying to lose weight, maintain weight, or keep the weight off that they've lost, or whether that's somebody who's trying to live the best quality of life and start the process of getting healthy or maintain their health in the gym, this is what the non-prescription toolkit is about. How do I holistically maintain my health, right? And is somebody going to put their reputation on the line for that? Well,
Yep.
the two of us
I
did.
think you're both here now today doing that. I want to thank you both so much for taking some time to sit with me today to help us all understand how it is possible to take control of our metabolic health, and for introducing us to and formulating, creating these amazing products, the non-prescription GLP-1 toolkit and the non-prescription pharmaceutical grade non-narcotic pain relief. I do think that these products are going to change people's lives all over the country in so many ways. And I think having a place to start and having people be excited about getting that control back is really phenomenal. So I want to thank you both, and also Dr. Marianne as well. I'm Marissa Morgan. On behalf of Non-Prescription Clinical, I want to thank you for watching Today's Health.